So, Stacey.
Eric.
I went to New York a couple weeks ago.
You do this all the time.
And guess what I did? I dropped an insane amount of money to go see the 2-part new Harry Potter movie.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Oh my God, it was so good.
Was it?
It was so good.
You have to go to 2 nights, right?
You do. It's a 7-hour play.
That is the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard.
Okay, so I bought tickets for the Thursday-Friday combo. So I went Thursday night and I went back on Friday night. You can buy tickets to see the entire thing on a Wednesday matinee and evening or Saturday matinee and evening.
Dear God.
And when part 1 was over, I was sad that I had to wait a whole day to see the next. It ends on a huge cliffhanger, first of all,
course.
but it is so, it takes you right back to Hogwarts, but it's not a movie. It's a play. Mm-hmm. It's very theatrical in the way. No, there's music in it. Imogen Heap scored it. And every scene change is lots of people in wizarding robes come and do lots of fun things with their capes. And so there's choreography, but it's always just to facilitate a scene change. And then you're in the next thing. The characters are so well drawn. The special effects are everything you would hope they would be for a Harry Potter story, but the characters are actually, really terrific. The story is moving. It cost me my entire tax return. I'm going again. I've already talked to a couple of Potterheads who were like, it was really that good. And I said, you have to. And by the way, just a little note about the non-traditional casting. I have to say my favorite performance in the entire thing was Noma Dumezwani as Hermione Granger. Fabulous.
I've heard nothing but good things about her.
So great. And I actually did see her in between shows. She was at the stage door having a cigarette. And on my way into the theater, I just stopped her and I wanted a selfie, but I wasn't going to do that to her because it was right before show. But I just stopped her and I said, hey, break a leg. And she looked at me so sweetly. So I said, thank you. British, of course. Yes. But that I just, I can't say enough about it.
Okay.
I literally bought the T-shirt. Gotta go.
All right.
Attention. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Pop surgeons Eric and Stacey, please report to operating room 1. Surgery is about to begin.
This is Pop-Operation. I'm Stacey.
I am Eric, and I got a story to tell you. I went to New York recently to have a whole theater weekend. And I ended up seeing some really great stuff. But the Saturday night of this theater weekend, my friends John and Sydney, who you know, took the train up to New York to meet me. And they were going to spend less than 24 hours in the city. But we were so excited to see the new Broadway production of The Boys in the Band.
Happy Pride Month, by the way.
Yeah. Happy Pride. Yay. So we got to, our tickets were at will call because I never trust myself with, if they can stay at the theater, that's fine. I walked up to will call and I said, 3 for Peterson. And this woman looked at me like, you haven't heard. And I said, heard what? Well, apparently at the matinee that Saturday, Jim Parsons twisted his ankle during the curtain call. And because, yes, and limped off stage.
Boy.
And because the show was still in previews, the understudies weren't quite baked yet.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's not funny.
And they canceled the show.
That sucks.
Just canceled it.
That sucks.
So we had come all the way to New York to see this show.
Well, you've been talking about it on other episodes.
Yes.
So excited.
A play that is very important to gay history.
It really is.
And, had a lot, and I believe still has a lot to say to us today. Great cast, which we'll get into. I had planned this whole thing so that when we did our show about The Boys in the Band, you would have seen the movie, I would have seen the movie and the new Broadway show, and I could bring all those insights with me. But, we ended up getting tickets for August. So anyway, we were very sad. And we found out over dinner at Sardi's, we just decided, we're not going to be unsad.
Hashtag humble brag.
Anybody can go to Sardi's.
I know, but it just sounds really very 1947.
Yeah,
cool.
But if you go to see this, so this is what John and Sydney and I do. We go to New York, we see shows, and then we always have late dinner at Sardi's afterwards, surrounded by all the caricatures. Because anybody can do this. And we were depressed. We were like sitting in the middle of this restaurant that usually makes us so happy, and we were depressed.
You had been looking forward to this for months.
And so Sydney wisely said the only way we're going to leave the city and not be depressed is if we all get out our phones, figure out when we can get our tickets to see it, and just buy a new set of tickets and go. So we're August 3rd. Jim Parsons, take very good care of your ankles before August, because I will be so...
But just be careful at the curtain call, which is an absurd way. I'm sorry, Jim. That's an absurd way to hurt yourself.
So the Boys in the Band. We're here today to talk about the Boys in the Band.
1967 was when it was written. 68 it went up. Here's what I'm going to say. I watched a documentary about it.
Uh-huh.
Here TV is a new network, and so they were doing, and I think it's mostly LGBTQ stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I had a 7-day trial. That's how Stacey rolls. And so I watched on there. I got the trial just so I could see this. I think it's called Behind the Boys in the Band, or
dirty.
That's not right. That may not be the title of it. I hope not.
We're gay. Probably is.
But it's about the making of the Boys in the Band. It's a lot about Mark Crowley, who wrote it and basically produced it and everything. And so it was a lot about him. He was a friend of Natalie Wood's, and she helped him basically get
She hired him to be her assistant, basically, so he'd have a lot of time to stay in her apartment and write
because he was homeless. At that point, he had a lot of ups and downs in his career, certainly at that point. Mm-hmm. And she was a friend and said, "Okay, why don't we make you my assistant?"
Yeah. And so didn't Robert Wagner have a lot to say as part of this documentary?
He did. He said that they adored each other, and that Natalie adored Mark and would have done anything. And so
they're like a little Will and Grace kind of situation.
Yes, very much so. Very much.
But what to know about the Boys in the Band?
Why is it significant? That's the big question, is why is it significant?
It is significant because it is the very first time we saw gay people who were explicitly gay on stage relating to each other. It is an ensemble piece, and so it is meant to kind of bring out types within the gay community. You know, we talked about Breakfast Club recently and how, within the confines of this suburban high school, here are the types that John Hughes wanted to bring together. This is very much the same way. In terms of plot lines, not a plot-heavy show.
It's a birthday party.
It's a birthday party.
Literally a birthday party.
And people drink and get mean, and have breakdowns. But that's the plot.
But historically, it is significant, and I think it's really significant. One of the things you have here is because it's pre-Stonewall.
Yes.
Now you're going to have to go into Stonewall, so that we can.
Stonewall is an event that happened in 1969.
Very significant to gay.
Yes, it is the
rights.
Birth of the modern gay rights movement. 2 days after Judy Garland died, the police raided a gay bar in New York City, as they were wont to do. And this particular night, the patrons, particularly the drag queens at the Stonewall Inn, which is still up and running in New York City, you can visit it, were not having it. And they refused to be loaded up into a paddy wagon, and they started a riot. And the Stonewall riots lasted for 3 days.
Wasn't this a memorial for Judy Garland? Wasn't that part of it?
Everyone was drowning their sorrows because Judy had just died.
So it was a part that was.
It wasn't like a planned event kind of a thing, but they were all there and they were all sad. And by the way, the Boys in the Band, the title comes from a line from A Star Is Born, where James Mason says to Judy Garland, "You weren't singing for me, you were singing for yourself and the boys in the band."
Yep.
Which was a little bit of a, kind of a dig and a very subtle way of saying, you're surrounded by all these gay men who adore you. And that is true about Judy Garland. And so even before Stonewall happened, the Boys in the Band, this idea of these men who worship and adore this diva, that was his title. And the original movie, it's funny, the tagline was "The Boys in the Band," and then it was ... is not a musical. Because it sounds like a musical. The Boys in the Band.
Have the word band in there. But yes, it was before, and I think that's significant because here's what I'm going to say. You asked me, so what did you think about this? And I said, I will tell you in a minute. I also said, I surprised myself.
Uh-huh.
I put this DVD in with the idea that I would tolerate it.
Uh-huh.
That it was going to be, I didn't know what I was going to see. I'd seen the behind the scenes, and I was like, okay, it looks like stereotypes, whatever.
Uh-huh.
The first 5 minutes which is really just the Michael character the party takes place at his house, and it's him getting ready, talking to his friend Donald. So there's exposition kind of going on there. But in the first 5-10 minutes, I remember having this thought, and I was like, I'm enjoying this. So the play went on. It had some highs. It had some lows. I have thoughts about certain things and characters and whatnot. But I will say that I did, and overall, I enjoyed it. I did. It is very much 1967, 1968.
Yeah.
But I totally enjoyed it. I did not, and I know that was controversy because there are a lot of gay men, especially, felt like it was too angry. Yeah. And that
too angry with the wrong target, too self-hating.
Self-hating, correct. Yes, I saw where there was some of that. But there were also some of the lines that when I was, again, watching the documentary and then reading some things, some of the lines that these people, critics would pull out, when I look at them, I'm like, you can also take it a different way. Yep. And I was taking it a different way. I wasn't taking it that there was all this I did not see a lot of loathing in this. Maybe I missed it. But also it may be because it's 21st century and I know gay men, a lot of them. And I saw some of them on there. There were a couple that they were so over the top that I kind of went, meh, nah, you might want to dial that down a little bit to be real. But at the same time, I wasn't offended. Yeah. I wasn't,
So in terms of this being a landmark in gay history, yes, it's the first time that we saw gay men who were, explicitly up there as gay men relating to each other. But you're right, because Stonewall happened right after, like a year after, it's really the only pop culture picture we have of pre-Stonewall gay men. So walking into a gay bar meant that you could get arrested at any moment. It was a hugely risky thing to do in 1968. Being gay was still classified as a mental illness. Several of these characters are in therapy. A big deal about Donald, the friend, is made of the fact that his therapist had canceled on him earlier in the day. And it's brought up several times. And it never says so in the play, but in 1968, you knew, and Mart Crowley has always, backed this up, he's in therapy to not be gay anymore.
Of course. I mean,
that's specifically why he's going to an analyst to not be gay. So interestingly, he moved away from New York. He now lives in the Hamptons because that's part of his therapy, is to get out of the city with all these gay influences. He comes into the city to go see his therapist and then always stays the night with Michael, who, by the way, he sleeps with.
Sure.
So how fucked up is that? I mean, that's part of the reason why people don't necessarily, have warm, fuzzy feelings about this play. But it is a moment in time that absolutely existed about a community that we never got to hear from, ever, ever, ever.
No, it was always, and they make a point, in the gay, at one point there's a line about the gay guy doesn't always die at the end. Yeah. And I think that was what the idea was. If you had a guy, it was a tragic figure. Yes. If there was a homosexual in your play, movie, book, whatever, they were a tragic figure. They were not going to have happy at the end. And it's very possible they were going to die. Yeah. I mean, that was just what you did. Yeah. Or they could be the bad guy. Yeah. But still not happy at the end, and they were possibly going to die.
Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hour and Suddenly Last Summer and all of these kinds of things where every gay person who's ever mentioned always has this, they're troubled, they're mentally ill, and they're going to kill themselves or be killed by the end of the thing. This play was actually written in response to this article that was written in 1966 by Stanley Kaufman, it was a very homophobic article that was really never named Edward Albee, Tennessee Williams, and William Inge, but really kind of took them to task for being secret underground homosexuals who are spoiling pop culture by all of these oblique gay references and all of the women that they write for. So he was talking Blanche Dubois, the strong women in Picnic and, Virginia Woolf were all really just gay men in disguise, is what he was trying to say. And there was some then pushback to that because actually the women that these gay playwrights created were actually amazing female characters that read pretty wonderfully as women.
Yes, they do.
But Mark Crowley read this and went, we've never put gay men on stage. This could be something to do. And it was supposed to be something that was going to be a reading, and it was going to last for 3 nights. It ran for over 1,000 performances off Broadway. It was the
huge
hot ticket. Everyone wanted to go down to the Lower East Side, outside of the Broadway district, and stand in line to get tickets for this play. Everyone was talking about it.
And so once it was popular, they then said, okay, we'll do a movie. But in between the movie coming out and the decision being made, Stonewall happened.
Yes.
And so that when the movie came out, there was a huge backlash.
Yeah.
Because of it felt like they were putting the gay men again back to the self-hating and putting them in as stereotypes and cliches.
And it just goes to show how quickly attitudes can change because of a singular event.
Correct.
Now, a lot of gay men living outside of New York City, the Stonewall ripple hadn't really hit them yet. But again, even after Stonewall, being gay was considered a mental illness. It was illegal in many places. If anyone had, if they could catch you, sodomy was something that would send you to jail.
Yes.
And so it was also like a freak show. I mean, there were people who would go to see the Boys in the Band just to see these people that we've heard about, these evil, weird homosexuals in their natural habitat of Manhattan. People wanted to see what these lives were like because they just couldn't imagine. Nobody had a gay neighbor that was out, that got along with the family that you would actually, introduce your kids to. I mean, that was just, and here was somebody who, wrote a play and now made a movie about these people.
Well, what I will say is, also, and that the actors, and we're going to talk about the actors who portrayed these, most of them, their agents suggested that they not do this play and then the movie because it would kill their career.
Yeah. And again, signing on to the play was signing on to a 3-night reading series in an off-Broadway theater.
Right.
So
but your agent was still saying, don't do it.
Yeah. And when it became a play that said, let's get this off book and we're actually going to mount this thing, then the agents were like, really seriously, no.
Correct.
And these actors many of them were gay themselves, and it was kind of an open secret.
The majority of them are gay. Were gay.
Yeah. A couple of them notably were straight.
Correct.
And those are the ones, those are the ones who were still alive.
Now,
talk about the Boys
you
in the
mentioned,
Band
before you get there, you mentioned Edward Albee. And in this documentary that I watched, they interviewed him because this documentary was done several years ago.
Yep.
And he said at the time, because they asked him to produce or what, and he said no. He did not think this should be out there. He did not like it. He never did. Even in this documentary, he didn't like it. And we'll talk about people who did, but it was just interesting to me that here is Edward Albee. He did not have much good to say about it.
No.
And so his name was in there and in the article and all that. And they tried to get him to come on board and help.
Yeah.
Because he would have been great as a name for producer and all that. And he was like, hell no.
And this is what I'll say about that attitude is that, yes, you could look at the characters in the Boys in the Band and say there's a lot of self-hating, self-loathing going on there. One of them actually says, if only we could learn not to hate ourselves quite so much. It's there. And I will say that gay men who look down their noses at the Boys in the Band as just this sad, pathetic remnant of the past, that's a form of self-hatred to me. At me. Go ahead. Bring it on. My feeling about that is if you can't admit that every once in a while you have a bad day, and if you can't admit that homophobia still exists in the world, and if you feel like just saying that puts you in the role of victim and you just absolutely reject anything to do with that, and you think that this story has nothing to say to you, to me, that's just, it's a form of delusion. It's not necessarily, that's not real. So, that's probably stronger than I want to say, because I know a lot of people who hate the Boys in the Band. Hate it.
See, I think that's too... I do not think it's worth hate. I can see, I had some technical issues with it. But...
the game at the end is a little clunky.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. We'll go through the characters, and I will tell you, there are some people here that are not great actors. They're not.
Okay.
And so I just kind of went, but... I don't think it's worth hate. I really don't, because I think it was the reason it was attempted was good. I'll also tell you this. I did feel, and I don't know, maybe you want to say, I did feel like it was a lot of one-liners.
Yeah.
Mart put every one-liner he could, is ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, bam.
He knew a lot of funny people. He knew a lot of funny people.
So there were sometimes it felt too much because I felt like, okay, this isn't real. You wouldn't have just one-liner after one-liner after one-liner. So at times, again, it felt fake.
Yeah. You wouldn't have that many one-liners in that condensed amount of time, but you would know that many funny people that over the course of a week, you would hear all of those one-liners probably.
Yeah, but as I said, it was the fact that it's all happening at one time. It was it would take me out of the moment.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you have these characters.
So these characters, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the actors who played them in the movie, the 1970 film, who, by the way, were the original cast off Broadway in 1968.
Mart said
every single actor.
They want Hollywood. The producer said, let's get a new cast. And Mart put his foot down and said, you will not have my play if you don't have my cast. The cast goes with. And as I said, in watching the movie, I'm just like, yeah, you're not great.
Well, for a lot of them, it was the very first time they'd ever been on camera.
I get it.
And so they were used to pitching their performance to the back row, and now they're in front of a camera for the first time.
Who did the movie, worked a lot with them about that. And in this documentary, they talked about how the actors were concerned that William Friedkin was going to come in, and he said, we're going to do some rehearsal. And they're like, we don't need rehearsal. We've been doing this for 3 years.
Yep.
And what they said at the end was, in the end, he was showing us how to do film acting as opposed to, getting it to the back row.
Yep.
But again, I still anyway.
Some of the performances are definitely better than others. But let's start with Michael. Michael is the host of the birthday party, so it's his apartment.
Yes,
and in many ways that makes him kind of the center of the ensemble.
Yes, in very many ways he is the
and he's
center.
the first one you meet, right? Really,
he starts to show off, and he is what I liked him, and so I was. That's one of the reasons why I sat there and I went, I'm not feeling like I thought I would feel when I'm watching this. I'm enjoying this at this point.
So Kenneth Nelson played Michael in the film. Jim Parsons is playing this role.
That was
Broadway.
Interesting. I did not see him in that. So that's very interesting. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, you know what? Next week we're going to be talking about the Skeleton Twins. Right? And we talk about how comic actors can sometimes bring a whole lot to dramatic roles that you would not expect
I'm not saying
to do.
Jim isn't good. I'm just saying that's an interesting, of all of the characters, that's an interesting one for me to do.
I actually have probably badly drawn high expectations for Jim Parsons. I bet he's going to do great.
But yes, he's a lapsed Catholic who talks about his religion.
Yep.
Still talks about it. And
ends the play by going to mass. This evening has done such a number on him. He's going to go sit in church.
Yeah, he's still very, very religious, even though it's a religion that has turned its back on him.
Yeah.
But he
doesn't know that he believes in God anymore, but he likes the rituals.
Yeah. And he also is in debt. That comes up so many times.
Up to his ears in debt. And again, it's one of those forms of self-loathing that he masks all the problems in his life by buying a new scarf or a new sweater.
Oh, very nice. His clothes are beautiful.
Yes. And he changes multiple times so you can see the extent of his wardrobe. Donald is Michael's boyfriend-ish.
Friend with benefit?
Yeah. I mean, they're
friends, but
they definitely fuck. But they're not necessarily in a committed
They're not
relationship.
a couple. No, they're not in a committed. No,
they're not a couple.
Yes, I agree. But they definitely, when Donald stays over, he stays over.
Yeah. And he's only got one bed, and we know what they're doing up there. Frederick Combs played this role.
I found him to be weak. I didn't get a lot off of him.
Yeah.
I felt like I just didn't get a lot of reaction from him.
Yeah.
So I thought he was weak. I think Matt Bomer will be wonderful.
Yeah, I bet he'll be really good.
Because Matt Bomer is a good actor.
Yeah. Frederick Combs, I feel like Donald in a lot of ways is, for a gay audience, he's your way in. I think for a straight audience, a lot of people are going to find, especially back in the 60s, Alan, who we'll talk about, was probably your way in because Alan might be straight. And so that was kind of a view into what was going on. For a gay audience, Donald is your view in.
He is, and I agree.
And he's troubled. He's the one who's in therapy trying to not be gay anymore.
Right. But he is very much the lead. He's not flamboyant at all.
Mm-mm. No.
But again, he doesn't want to be gay. So he's going to be going that way.
Exactly.
But so there's him.
The butchest of the group of the people we know for sure are gay is Hank. Larry Luckenbill played this in the movie. I liked his performance a lot, actually.
He was wonderful.
Yeah, really, really good.
But Lawrence Luckenbill is a good actor, and he's done a lot of things. And this was not his first play.
No.
I thought he was great. You know, he's married to Lucy Arnaz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but anyway, he was married to a woman and has kids.
Yep.
And he's in the process of getting a divorce when this is happening.
And in the course of the play, Michael introduces him as someone who swings both ways. So Hank still identifies as a bisexual here. Now, there was a point in time when people didn't believe that male bisexuals existed. And so that was probably seen as, oh, he's just saying that. Bi now, gay later kind of a thing. But, you know, now we're kind of learning, you know, the more that we learn about orientation, that actually male bisexuals are a thing. And so maybe he is bi, maybe he's transitioning out of a straight life into a gay life, and that's how he defines himself.
Well,
we don't know.
But he's a monogamous person no matter what.
Yes.
He now wants to have a monogamous gay relationship with his Larry,
partner,
who is the next character we talk about.
Just want to mention Tuke Watkins is the name of the guy who's playing Hank
and I don't
on
know him,
Broadway.
So.
Apparently he's very well known from the soaps.
Okay.
And soaps create some good actors. The writing is often not great, but a lot of amazing actors come from.
It's a great school.
Yeah. So people know him from that. Another big star on Broadway, Andrew Rannells from the Book of Mormon.
I love him so much.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
Is playing Larry in the new play. Keith Prentice played this role in the movie. And Larry is Hank's. Now, Hank and Larry are a couple.
Yes.
They are a couple. They're a defined couple.
Yes.
They live together. Larry's thing is that Larry wants an open relationship. He wants to be able to.
He does not want to be
around.
monogamous.
He doesn't want to have a sexually monogamous. Even though he loves Hank.
Yes.
He wants to be Hank's partner. He doesn't want to be.
But he wants to be able to have sex with other people.
Exactly. And this is a debate that rages in the gay community to this day. The next character here is Emery.
And I think he may be the most controversial as far as at the time that this is the one that gay men were like, I'm so offended by this character.
Yep.
Because he's the most flamboyant. He's like Jack on Will and Grace. Only more.
Yeah. And it's 1968. So what I'll say about Emery is that I don't think Emery could hide it. I don't think he was capable of passing as straight in any kind of... Whereas Donald and Larry and Michael aren't as naturally butch as Hank. Mm-hmm. They could dial it back a little bit. I don't think Emery can. And so as a source of...
He could never pass.
So Emery as a source of armor doesn't try to dial it back. He dials it up.
Yeah.
You know, and so no one is that flamboyant out of the womb.
Right.
But it's armor for him. It's
correct.
his protection. It's him saying, I am gay. Deal with me.
Yes.
Because if he tried to pass, he would fail miserably.
And then he'd be hurt
it's just
that
not
way.
in him. But you're right. I think in 1968, he was everyone's gay nightmare.
Yes.
He was just the person that this is who you think all of them are going to be. But I had to put one of them in so that you would recognize this is a group of gay men.
But also he's a minority.
Yes.
He's not everybody.
He's not everybody.
But that is everybody's perception.
But you had to put at least one Emery into the play.
Or nobody would believe it.
Or nobody in 1968 would believe this is a group of gay men. I can find 7 gay men in a room now. None of them are Emery today. And I know some Emerys today. You know,
but you can have a group where there's no Emery.
Exactly. But this being the first play about a bunch of gay men relating to each other.
Again, it's like the Breakfast Club we talked about.
And Emery has some fantastic lines.
He does. Now, Cliff Gorman played him, and he said he was straight.
He is.
And he was married and all that. Well, it's funny because I forget who it was in the documentary felt like. He said, I think everybody was gay. I know that there are some who said they were straight, but I feel like you just can't have that many good actors that could be gay that, play gay that well. And I'm going, a good actor can play gay.
Yeah.
I mean, just like a good gay actor can play straight.
Well, and honestly, playing this level of flamboyance is a lot easier than playing, the level of flamboyance that you see when it's dialed down.
I agree. Yeah. I believe that, and Cliff Gorman got a lot. He did get, there was criticism on the one hand, but there was also a lot of, oh my God, he was wonderful. And he was so brave in all of this. His was to me, his was one of the more unbelievable ones for me. And it wasn't because he was so over the top, because again, you watch Will and Grace and Jack, I'm believing that more than I was this, because I was watching this and seeing some of the habits he decided that he was going to have, the way he held his arms and things like that he decided this is the gay way to do it. And I was taken out of the story.
A actor named Robin De Jesus, Jesus spelled like Jesus, is playing, maybe it's Robin De Jesus. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
White. I think it's De Jesus.
I'm pretty sure it's De Jesus.
Yeah.
Is playing this on Broadway. Interesting that they cast another person of color in this, because, typically the boys in the band has been all white with the exception of Bernard, who we're about to talk about. Bernard is interesting because Bernard is written explicitly as the black person in this play.
Yes.
On the one hand, I really applaud Mark Crowley for saying this will not be an all-white cast because gay people are not all white. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, because he made such reference to his race, you really can't stage a truly diverse boys in the band now. You couldn't really put a whole lot of Latin or Asian people in this and then only talk about Bernard's race and no one else's race gets mentioned. You know what I mean?
I agree. And that's one reason why I was asking you about the new, I hadn't read about it when they were staging the Boys in the Band again. I thought, are they updating it? Because you could update this and I know you're rolling your eyes right now. I totally think you could, because
you'd have to change a lot.
You would have to change some. I mean, but there are so many politically incorrect shit that is said.
Oh my God, yes.
There's anti-Semitism. There is racial slurs out the fucking yin-yang. That made me more uncomfortable than anything else that was going on. And Bernard took the most.
Yeah.
The racial slurs were ridiculous.
But here's the interesting thing. He took them from Emery. Emery could call Bernard the African Queen. Somebody else made a crack about Bernard's race, and that was not okay. And it was an interesting way to kind of draw these characters, because Bernard and Emery are close.
Yeah.
And one of the ways in which, gay men often still, my group of gay friends, today still relate to each other by making fun of each other.
And I get that, but I don't know. It's
and you take it from your friends, but you won't take it from somebody who's not that close to you. And so Bernard is there as Emery's guest. He's not really a part of Michael's inner circle, certainly. He gets invited along, and I think because Emery knows Harold, who is the birthday boy, Bernard is also there to celebrate Harold's birthday. But, no one else can make fun of him being black. Emery can. And so that's an interesting distinction. But yes, when you see someone just called the African Queen and everyone laughs at it. It was very hard
for me to deal with.
It is difficult to see.
But here's what I will say also. Reuben Green played Bernard. I thought his was one of the best performances on that screen. He was amazing. By the way, nobody knows where he is now.
No, he's completely disappeared.
He completely dropped off the face of the earth.
And so when you look at this cast and go, who is gay and who is straight? First of all, we have no idea. And I have no idea whether he's still alive.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
They've tried to find him.
He's truly disappeared.
And he totally fell off the face of the earth. But he was a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
And he was just, I loved his performance in this.
Yeah.
Loved, and it's a shame that he didn't do more acting, because he was very, very good.
Very good. A young actor named Michael Benjamin Washington, who I don't know much about, is playing Bernard in the new show.
All right.
Harold, and I mentioned him close to last, because he's one of the last characters. I think he's the last character to show up. Harold is the last person in the play to arrive.
I think you're right.
And boy, does he make an entrance. And Harold he's not a stereotype, but boy, he's an unusual, one-of-a-kind kind of a character.
He is.
Leonard Fry plays him in the movie, and Leonard Fry is otherwise best known as Mottle the Tailor in the Fiddler on the Roof movie, starring Topol. And in this one, he's not Mottle the Tailor anymore. Zachary Quinto is playing Harold in the new play.
I would appreciate that. I did not care for Leonard Fry.
Really?
Did not.
Oh, I think it's a brilliant performance. I can't get enough of it.
Did not. I disagree wholeheartedly.
Wow.
I did not care for it at all. Nope.
Huh.
Nope.
Keith Prentice, who played Larry, originally was Harold.
Right.
They wanted Leonard Fry, couldn't get him. And so Keith Prentice was sent in to be Harold. When they got Leonard Fry,
so I think for the reading that Keith Prentice did it. And then when they got the play, they were able to get Leonard Fry. Yes.
They actually asked Keith Prentice to play Larry. Whoever was playing Larry got probably a very nice note and got booted out of the cast.
Yeah.
His very first line, which is actually something of a monologue, which is, him telling the world why he was a little bit late. Just masterful. I mean, I can't take my eyes off him when he's on. I don't know anything about him, but it just, and his whole thing when he meets Alan and the whole, who is she? Who was she? Who does she want to be? I mean, all of that kind of stuff. Just, I don't know. I'm so drawn to Harold. I love him and I hate him. And
the role, I think, is fine, cool, which is why I would love to see Zachary Quinto do it. But it's literally Leonard Fry that I did not care for.
Wow.
I didn't care for his performance. Did not.
Okay. Well, that is probably going to be our biggest point of disagreement because I think it's probably one of the best performances in the whole movie.
Wow.
Yeah. It's stunning. And that last, the piece of dialogue that everyone always takes from the boys in the band is his last kind of takedown to Michael.
His lines are great.
Yeah.
I don't like his performance.
Well, but the way to me, I can't think about Harold without thinking about Leonard Fry because it's just, it's
well, no, they're the same. I mean, that's how I think of it, but I do. But the lines were great.
I thought the way he delivers that last piece where you could easily take what he says to Michael at the end. Where he basically says, you'll always be gay, is what he's saying. It's like you're trying everything you can not to be, and you hate yourself, and you'll always be this thing. And you could easily take that and just scream that at somebody because you're so angry and you're so fed up with all their bullshit. And Leonard Fry just says it all with this very clear tone of voice and da-da-da, and lays down the law and delivers the most crushing blow to this man. And then looks to the rest of the room and says, lovely party. I mean, it's just the way it's creepy and it's weird and it's one of a kind and it's just its own thing. I loved it.
As I said, I think the lines were, his dialogue, the character, great. The role, great. But I did not... Because I felt like I just felt like he was walking through it. I just didn't see any skill to it.
Oh. And
that was, you sit there and you're saying that I'm like, he said the lines, he said them quietly, he said them to Michael. And it was the directing, that the camera angle or whatever that gives you, I think, any kind of meaning. The thing about that line is the line that critics would pull out too, to say, it's self-loathing. But I also take it the other way. He's just saying you will always be gay. I don't take it as an insult that he's making to Michael. He's just stating a fact.
He is stating a fact, but he says, and again, I quote it backwards and forwards. He starts off this little speech by saying, "You're a sad and pathetic man. You're a homosexual, and you don't want to be."
Right.
But you will always be gay. And so, yes, it's not an insult. It's a state of fact, but it's the fact that Michael cannot face, and it's the fact that someone is willing to say this to his face where he cannot escape it.
Sure.
It's what causes him to break down at the end of it.
And they have a history. Those two characters have a history that we don't know fully.
Yeah.
We never see the present, the gift that Michael gives him.
No, it's a framed photograph.
It's a framed photograph with some words on it. And that's all that Harold says. Yep. Everybody says, what did Michael give you? And he said, it's a framed photograph and has some words on it. And that's all he says. We never find out.
No.
But
I think they probably have a very codependent relationship because after he just destroys this man, he turns around and his last line of the whole play is, "I'll call you tomorrow."
But the thing is, all throughout, for the last half of the play, Michael went on he was just
vicious,
awful, horrible, and said horrible things to literally everyone, including Harold. But yes, I think you're right. Codependence is probably the right way to say about those two characters. So I think that would be fascinating to see Jim Parsons and Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely
wonderful.
So we have two more, and then we're finally going to take a break.
Yes.
Alan, who is like the big mystery in The Boys in the Band always about Alan is he straight or is he gay? Peter White, who played the role in the film, was quoted as saying, I went to the original director of the play and said, how should I do this? Which is he? And the director said, if you play this role right, half the audience will walk away thinking you're straight and half the audience will walk away thinking you're gay. I think in 2018, I don't think anyone thinks he's straight.
I agree.
I think in 1968, you were hoping that he was straight because, rather than go down this awful road.
And he has a wife and he has kids too.
Yes, he has a wife and children who now I think we would say they'll be better off if you leave them, because why would you want to be married to a gay man? But in today, I think he doesn't belong in the play if he's not gay. It's just this is what this play is.
Well, the first
and
time
he's not interesting.
In the movie you see him, but and I guess in the play it's just a phone call from Michael's end.
Yep.
But in the movie you see he has gotten to New York. He's in a hotel room and he calls Michael.
His old college friend.
And he's crying and he says, "Can I come see you?"
Yep.
And Michael's like, "No, I got a party going on. You can't do that. I'm sorry. Another time. Let's have lunch tomorrow, whatever." And Alan just breaks down and says, "Please." And he's like sobbing. And Michael says, "Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Come on over for 5 minutes and we'll talk and then we'll do lunch later."
And so Michael hangs up the phone and Michael's like, "Okay, everybody's got to be straight for the 5 minutes that Alan's here because he does not know about me."
Yep.
And he doesn't know anything about he doesn't know any of you guys. Yep. So you have to pretend you're straight. Emery, go away for a while.
Exactly.
Stay out of the room.
Yep.
And so that's the idea. But when Alan gets there and throughout the play that he's watching, he truly is the most, in my opinion, self-loathing.
Yes.
He's kind of in denial, but it looks like, and I will say this, you never find out really what he was crying about. You never have that moment where he goes, "The reason I was crying," you never get that. And somebody actually asked Michael and says, "Why?" Or I think it was Donald says, "So why was he crying? Did you ever find that out?"
What's the big secret he wanted to tell you?
And
you never find out what it is.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the secret that I'm seeing is I'm gay.
That's totally what I saw.
There's
no reason.
I have to tell you because, by the way, I could see right through you. I know that you're gay too. Yes. And I think because they talk about that they were in college, they would leave the city. They would leave their college and go have these flings and then come back. Yep.
These flings with men.
Yep. And
then come back. And Michael accepted that, okay, I'm probably gay. Yep. Whereas Alan was like, no, just a fling for that weekend or whatever, even though that, the weekends stacked up. But no, I agree. 100% watching Alan. You're right. There's no reason for him to be in this if he's not gay. Yeah. And he connects with Hank, the guy getting divorced early on, and even makes a comment. He says he's very attractive. Yeah. Dude, you're gay. That's just, you're gay. If you're saying that, you're gay.
Maybe in 1968 that was, language that was used. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that was a tell.
Damn gay to me.
I think it was a tell.
But he also hates Emery. Hates Emery.
Him.
And so that's his thing. Is that I'm afraid I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be that.
But he likes Hank because Hank's butch and he reads straight. But he's also disappointed to learn that Hank is Larry's lover.
Correct.
He's disappointed to hear that.
He thought, here's another straight. He thought, here's another guy I connect to. Because they had so much in common. Yep. And then when he finds out that, and Hank is like, yeah, he's
my lover. Which is a point in favor of saying maybe Alan is straight, but I don't think he is. But that's one of the clues that when you find out that he's so disappointed that Hank is gay, if he truly is gay and wants to be butch, Hank would be there to kind of this avatar to say, look, you could be like Hank.
But it's also,
he doesn't want that either.
Why are you, if you are straight, why are you so angry at Emery?
Yeah.
So much so that he's like twice as tall and big as Emery is.
And can beat him up and does.
And he does. He knows, I mean, he is so much bigger and he is an adult. He knows he can beat this man up. Yep. And still he couldn't stop from going after him physically.
Yep. Hates him.
And to me that's
self-loathing.
Dude.
Yep.
This is not you being I'm objective and I'm straight. No,
and we might not see a lot of Donalds today, a whole lot of gay men who, come to the city and sleep with men while coming from their analysts to try not to be gay anymore. You see a lot of Allens. There's still Allens out there. There are gay men who are married to women. Absolutely today there are, and they're on that journey.
Yes,
so
I agree.
So we see that all the time. The very last character, which we don't need to say much about.
Nope, we do.
This is a very small role. Charlie Carver is playing this role on Broadway, and a first-time actor who was spotted in a bar in Fire Island. Robert Letourneau played the role of Cowboy. He doesn't even get a name. He's a street hustler that Emery has purchased for the evening for Harold. This is Harold's birthday present.
Do you remember how much he cost?
$20.
$20. Come on. Even in 68,
and someone calls him cheap, and he says, I'm not cheap. I cost $20, and that's a punchline. So you know that even in 68, that was
I was going to say, even
pretty
in 68,
cheap.
that's pretty cheap.
And, you know, at first it looks like, oh, it's just, you know, it's there, and nothing's really going to... But at the end, when Harold leaves, come on, Tex, let's go to my place. Harold's going to take him up on his present. He's going to enjoy Cowboy for the evening.
$20.
Yep, you know?
Well, and here's what I will say. Robert Letourneau was the weakest.
Sure, not an actor.
He was not an actor, and he was not good. And I as a Hollywood producer, I would have replaced him as well. I'm sorry, he just wasn't good. He was out of his league.
But he was very much, I think, you know, outclassed by the amount of talent that was around him, and very small role. And according to everyone in the cast, he was not at all like this character. He was actually very smart. You know,
although he was surprised when he couldn't believe he had some issues once many of these actors died of AIDS.
Yes.
And he was one of them. He was the first one, I believe.
He was the first one to die.
And they said
Cliff Gorman and his wife took him in and took care of him in the later part of his life.
But part of his problem was he had a hard time facing the fact that he said, I'm too young and too good looking and too physical. I can't be dying. He had a very hard time with that. Yeah. But anyway, so those are the characters. That's the plot. And then we're going to talk about why people hate it.
When I tell people that I love this play and I love this film, people often look at me really surprised and I say, okay, it's real. And it has to your point, it can be artificial, but I followed up with, it's funny as hell. It is a really, really funny, you know, work.
There are a lot of funny things in it. Yes.
And I think that, you know, if we think that you're completely beyond this, I think you're kidding yourself. Yes, we're certainly beyond a lot of it.
Oh, I agree with you on that. You know, we are not beyond this. Yeah. Sadly, we are not beyond
because society is not fully accepting of us. And the whole thing about the self-loathing, it's not because people naturally hate themselves because they're gay. It's not a correlational thing. It's a causational thing of being an oppressed minority.
You've been told that you should. This is bad. Yep. And you are bad.
And you're an oppressed minority who was not raised by your own, right? I'm not a big fan of the Oppression Olympics, right? Which is, you know, one oppressed group goes after the other about we have it worse off than you. Because I am white, I am male, I am educated, I am, you know, a citizen, I've got a whole lot of privilege. I happen to be gay. And I don't try to, you know, rate myself in terms of anyone else. But I was having a conversation once with a group of people who said we shouldn't be talking about gay rights at all as long as we're so racially fucked up. And I kind of said, well, wait a minute. You know, and there was a bit of a how can your pain be compared to mine kind of a moment. And I looked at this woman who's a friend of mine, a black woman, and I looked at her and I said, you know, because you never had to go home and tell your parents that you were black and hope that they wouldn't kick you out of the house. And that is something that makes our community a little different, is that we're not raised in a supportive environment usually. We're not raised with any sense of take pride in who you are.
All you have to do is watch one episode of RuPaul's Drag Race and hear some of the stories of these people, of how they got there and why they find themselves so lucky to have found drag and then to be on RuPaul. But you hear some of these stories of non-acceptance and abuse even.
Yep.
So no, I think, you know, and it's one of those where, so you're saying that this group has to get their rights before this next group. I disagree with that as well. Yeah, I think that, you know, we've got as women, equality pay and rights on their own bodies can go simultaneously with black women and black men and all of that and that sort of thing, as well as the
and these are not
LGBTQ.
Separate groups.
BTQ.
You know, the fact is
there are a lot of
the most
crossover.
dangerous person to be in America today is a trans woman of color.
I see that.
That's the highest murder rate and the highest death rate. And, if you isolate the particular corner of these intersections, that is, and so all of those things are working against, a certain population, and we can't ignore any of it.
No.
Not to downplay my own privilege at all, because I have a ton of it, and I'm very aware of that. But, we're still, and I think that there is this mythology that, marriage equality happened, so now
we're done with that.
Post-gay. We're not. There's just a lot to deal with. And I think that The Boys in the Band does bring up the pain of being in a minority group.
I think and
it's a very pre-Stonewall thing. It's a certain kind of pain that not everyone experiences in exactly the same way. But I'm a big proponent of know your history. And this is the only piece of this particular kind of pre-Stonewall gay history most of us are going to have a chance to see. And two, history is not just in the past. We live it every day.
Well, I think, again, the whole thing is you do have to remember history so you don't repeat it. That's the whole point of keeping up with that. And I do think, I agree with you. I think that those in the LGBTQ who aren't aware of Stonewall or they aren't aware of Boys in the, y'all there's got to be some history there. Yeah. You've got to keep that in there so that it's at the forefront of your mind going forward. Yep. And you can say, we aren't going to go back.
And our community doesn't know its history very well, mostly because we're not always raised by gay parents who teach it to us. So it's not passed on. A lot of times generations don't really mix in the gay community. You don't have a lot of friendships that cross generational barriers within the community. Gay choruses is the one place that I've seen that does happen, which is why I love the whole gay choral movement, because you will have a 20-year-old sitting next to a 70-year-old and learning about each other's lives in a way that I think is really healthy. But yeah, the knowledge and wanting to know the history of your tribe is something that really has to be, I push it, because we don't have a lot of it compared to other minority groups, all of whom struggle to learn their real history.
Well,
absolutely. Our struggles on that score are big.
No, you're right. I think that, struggle comparison is not really fair. But I do think that, and this is Pride Month, and this is one reason we're talking about this. This is a part of history that I think is important for everyone to see. I enjoyed it. As I said, I have some technical issues. And, your favorite character, who is your favorite character?
In 2018,
Harold?
It's Emery.
Okay.
Yeah, my favorite character is Emery, because Emery is, again, a 2018 lens. He's supposed to be your least favorite character. He's there to be the avatar of everything we think is wrong with gay men. And to me, I'm like, you are the closest to me, because it's a pre-Stonewall story. You're out and you're proud, kind of the way I am, in a way that no one else in this play is. So I love Emery. I have a soft spot for him. And during this game, which we obliquely kind of mentioned it, the much of the second act of this play is taken up with this game that Michael forces everyone to play, where you get points, and the idea is call the person that you love the most and tell them you love them. You'll get maximum points. And so there are winners and losers to this game. But Emery tells this heartbreaking story of this boy that was the popular kid in school when he was a young man, and he was in love with him. And he calls him, and it's just, after you've spent the whole show just kind of, he's been a punchline and he's been something to laugh at. Suddenly you see that he's got a heart, and you see that he's got a soul, and that he hurts. And
that was his best scene, in my opinion, because again, it was very. I had some technical issues with his performance, so I enjoyed that for him.
See, I see Emery in maybe a different way, because to me, that's when he took his armor off, and that's who Emery really was. And I think that Cliff Gorman would be the first to tell you that much of the flamboyance in the first half was not genuine.
Right.
It was, he put that on, and Emery put that on.
Right.
Right. And then when you see who he really is, this is who he really is. And to me, it's a beautiful performance. It's beautifully written. And I know that you're supposed to be scared of Emery in 1968. He's less scary now. And so I really, he reaches out and he grabs me. In terms of who I'd want to hang out with, I'd want to have a drink with Emery. I wouldn't want to know probably any of the rest of these men, even though I enjoy spending time with them metaphorically in a movie.
So my favorite, I have two different, my favorite performance, frankly, was Reuben Green, Bernard,
the
black guy. He was wonderful.
Yes.
After him would be, I think, Lawrence Luckinbill. Just because I said I think for a straight person in 1967, that is what you needed to understand, that it doesn't have to be Emery. Okay, it doesn't have to be. You don't be scared. Don't act like it's some kind of alien. It's a person. He's a person. He's just a regular person that could look like you, could be your next door neighbor, and it's fine because he's a person. And I think that's what he.
And one of the reasons why I love Hank is that Hank isn't trying to be that person. He's not trying to be butcher than he is. This is just who he is.
It's who he is.
He's not putting on any pretenses at all. I mean, he's putting on fewer pretenses than Emery, although I would say that in their own ways, Hank in terms of mannerisms, but Emery in terms of just being out and being honest with the world, they are the two most authentic characters in this whole thing.
I would probably agree with you on that. Now, my favorite character, though, that Michael.
Really?
Yep. The host. Now, I have a problem. He gets drunk and starts this game, which gets really ugly.
And there's lots of stuff at the beginning saying, I don't drink anymore, I don't drink, and I'm better off for not drinking. And as soon as you notice him drinking, he gets mean.
He's a nasty drunk.
Yes.
But even through all that, it was a little bit, he got really drunk really fast, and he got really nasty and really hardcore nasty really quickly for me. But that's a directorial thing or a writing thing, whatever.
I'm pretty sure in the play, the intermission is more than 15 minutes is supposed to elapse during the intermission. Okay. So I think the play reads a little bit differently. When you come back to Act 2, it's much later, and he's way drunker.
Yeah, that makes more sense. So anyway, but my one moment is at the end, where he drops to the floor in this big histrionic, death drop kind of thing.
But not the entertaining kind.
But not the drag race kind. Not the kind that makes you laugh. It was very soap opera from 1957, and I did not believe it. But everything I don't know, related is probably the wrong, but I got it. I got who he was, and I liked his performance, and I liked the actor and all of that. That was my one choice where I went, okay, that was a little over the top.
I blame Mark Crowley for that more than I blame the actor.
I was going to blame William Friedkin for that.
Okay, yeah. Somebody, I think it probably could have been handled a little bit more delicately, but Mart really needed that line, if only we could learn not to hate ourselves quite so very much. Because even though that points to self-loathing, that was Mart Crowley's really gay rights rallying cry.
That was his point.
Is to say
Stop
to anybody to any gay man who's watching this, don't be like that. Learn to hate yourself a little bit less.
Yeah.
And in a way, be able to listen to what Harold has to say about you're gay, you're always going to be gay, it's never going to change. Right. Even though we had these two characters, Michael and Donald, who were actively trying not to be gay anymore, Mark Crowley knew enough about what it means to be gay to put those words into Harold's mouth and say, you're dreaming. It's never going to happen. You will be gay forever.
And I like that moment. As I said, when Michael loses it, my biggest problem was it was not what that character would have done, in my opinion. It was an anomaly, and I went, I was taken out of the moment because I'm like, oh, come on, Michael wouldn't do that.
Yep.
But but as I said, here's my thing on this is it's like RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else?
And they can't love anybody else.
That's right.
They can't.
That's
Michael cannot. Like, he really ought to be in love with Donald.
Mm-hmm. He wants to be. He wants to be.
He wants to be, but in the end, he leaves Donald alone in his apartment so he can go to fucking midnight mass.
That's right. And then he says, and lock up before you leave, meaning Donald's leaving.
Yeah.
Lock up when you leave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is, compare that to Harold's last line to Michael, which is, I'll call you tomorrow, after devastating him. I mean, it's a really interesting web of relationships we've got going on here. Final diagnosis, it's a really important piece of gay history. So if you are an LGBT listener of this podcast, I would say, got to know your history. You should experience it. Even if it feels like homework, do it. And B, I actually really love it. Despite the fact that I think it's an important thing for everyone to see, I actually think it's entertaining. and it's moving, and it's a thing that I am grateful exists.
I would say that, yes, I think it's good for anybody to see, but I certainly, LGBTQ community, you need to be seeing this. This is your history. It's a part of it. It was a moment in time of where things were, and it was historical because it got made in a time when it shouldn't have.
Yep.
So you have to give it props for all of that. I will also say, as I said, I went into it going, it was homework. It was something I needed to do because, Eric wants to do it, yada, yada. And I went in with very low expectations, and I was very pleasantly surprised. And I'm glad that I saw it. And I think people should see it. And I am looking forward to what you have to say about the play. I also, I think it should be updated.
Okay.
That's what I think. Get on that, Eric. You're a writer. What the hell?
Well, I don't know. I mean, so we should do not necessarily a remake, but a kind of a new Boys in the Band for
Updated.
the 21st century.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, Terrence McNally did that with Love, Valor, Compassion.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's there.
True.
I mean, there's been a lot of that since then. So I think that, Terrence has kind of covered that.
But okay, maybe it just stays as history. Okay, okay.
But I think that if you're going to do the Boys in the Band, it's important to know your history, like you said. So keeping the Boys in the Band in its time capsule, I still think is really, really valid. Anyway.
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride, everybody. We are Eric and Stacey, and this is Pop-Oration.
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook. Let us know what you think, how you feel, and tell your friends.
You've been listening to Pop-Oration with Eric and Stacey, the podcast that dissects popular culture one bloody organ at a time. Subscribe today on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other podcast listening site or app. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Pop-Oration Room. Check out our website at popoperationroom.com for all of the podcasts, our blog, swag, and games. Until next time, when we're back in the scrubs.